Hey guys, this is part two of me discussing what happened to me. I want to reiterate again that this is a trigger warning. Don't listen to this episode if you don't want to hear about abuse and SA and everything like that. Please always protect your mental health. And at this point, I ask that if my family members don't listen to this, as if they don't listen to this, I don't ever want you guys to hear it. I don't ever want you guys to know. Ever. And although I'm willing to tell my story, I don't know if I could live with you guys knowing what happened to me. I don't want to cause you that pain. So please don't listen. So, okay. I left you guys I'd flown there to go see him, and we had conversations about our interactions around people and around friends. And he was very adamant, like, when I see you, you're going to be on my lap and everybody's going to know, and I'm going to be playing with you. And I don't give a shit about what anybody else thinks. And that's important. I want to keep that notice so that when we get to other parts, you'll understand. I was so nervous. And I got off the plane and he was picking me up, and it was a little frustrating at first, navigating another airport. And I finally saw him. And I walked him and I let him know, like, hey, when I first see you, I'm gonna be really anxious. I'm gonna be really nervous. I'm gonna be really weird. And he was the exact opposite. He was like, that's okay. I will make it comfortable. And I remember having a conversation like, I don't know if I'll be able to do everything or want to do everything. And he was like, I just want to see you. Because there was a lot of conversations about how a lot of people in my life at that time had just wanted me for my body. My God, I had just wanted me for my body, and that was something that I didn't want. And so it's like, I always was like, what happens if we see each other and we don't like each other? The connection's not there. And he was like, it's fine. We'll be, if it happens, I don't think it'll happen, but if it happens, we're friends and we'll work through it. And we're friends first, and we don't need to rush anything. Um, when he saw me, he instantly brought me to him and he kissed me, and it felt great and it felt right. And I had always been skeptical. I wasn't like immediately physically attracted to him. Um, but I'm also often attracted to people's personalities more than anything and that is always the selling point for me. And so, but I felt an immediate attraction. And I remember we had also had conversations about like sex, and we talked about like I had gotten tested and I was on birth control. Um, and he had got tested as well, and we shared the results with each other. Um, and it was going to be my first time engaging in what I would call play. And I was like, let's just start small. Let's just start easy. Let's not like do anything crazy. And I told my best friend this, and we go shopping, and it was great at first. And we're just talking, we're catching up, we're eating food, and the first red flag was him communicating how while I was there, he wouldn't pay for me to eat food if we weren't having sex. And I recognized that as a wound that he had, that, he felt like women were using him in those ways. And I was trying to be as empathetic as possible to that. I really, truly, as much as you guys think that I'm a man hater and I don't understand men's plight, I do. And, but he made that statement, and it was off-putting. But I was there. Like I kind of want you guys to keep this in mind when I talk about this story. I was there. I was not home. I was hours of a plane flight away from home. And I was also tired. There's so much going on. I barely slept, everything. So we finish at the store. We eat ramen. We're just kind of like chit-chatting. Things are a little awkward. We get back to his place, and immediately he wants to have sex with me. And I had known that he was very insatiable, and he had a very high sex drive. But it was not slow. And there are some rules when you involve in play. You have to have boundaries, you have to have rules, and you have to have safe words. And I planned on had we talked about it originally. I was, he kind of like brushed it off, and I was like, no, we're going to really talk about this when we get there. And I planned on having that conversation with him because the first time that we were supposed to have sex, we weren't supposed to engage in play. It was just supposed to be us connecting with each other. And to ease me into that, I had been celibate for like 2 years. And so I was really nervous. And I had a high sex drive. To meet this high sex drive, I was just nervous because I hadn't opened myself up to someone like that in a really long time. And this was something that was like really important. But that is when I first realized that he was a sadist. And he didn't want to participate in the rules or anything. He just wanted to cause me pain, and the slowness that we were supposed to have didn't happen. It was immediate. And it was painful. He truly wanted to hurt me, and not hurt me where it felt good and I would enjoy it, but hurt me. And that was the first time I think he bit me, and which was in the line of play, but then harder and harder until it really, really hurt. And I screamed and I kicked at him. I said, stop. And he kept going until I physically pushed him off me, and he enjoyed it. I didn't have the tools to know what it meant that time, but I knew that I had just agreed to spend my weekend with him. And I had no car. I had no one to get me. And I thought that it would get better. And at least at that time, he was being emotionally caring. And I was like, okay, it'll get better. It's just the first time we're both just nervous and unprepared. And then we went to the second state, and the drive there was great, even though I started listening to some of these like women hating YouTube channels and podcasts that he listened to, and it was just disturbing, honestly, and mirrored some of his things because he was a person who believed in misandry to the fullest. And it was really sad because I could see how these men who've been hurt emotionally by women over and over again and felt helpless turned to these words to make them feel better about what happened to them, and that women are the real victim and everything like that. Like, I could see how they start this brainwashing. So the drive was fine, and then it got a little weird because he was calling his roommates to let them know, and he was like, oh, okay, well, we're about to go to all these events. And it was weird because we were supposed to be like spending time with each other and connecting with each other. And then all of a sudden our entire weekend was planned. And it was a long weekend too. It was like Labor Day weekend. All of a sudden our entire weekend was planned. And so he called and was like, oh, we'll talk about this. I might be bringing someone. And they're like, who? He was like, you'll see when he got there. Like, he was almost afraid to tell them about me. And so we got there and he introduced me to his roommates, and there were several roommates because they all lived in this beautiful house. And they all like had their own rooms, and to the other people. And then I was kind of really awkward because, again, I have social anxiety. And sorry, I just had this encroaching thought that I'm not even doing a good job of telling this story. So I'm sorry if I'm not doing a good job telling the story. It's hard to remember. I remember I was going back up in his room, and he wanted me to be quiet because I was really loud, and we had sex again. And the same thing happened, but worse and more pain and more having to push him off and be like, his name, stop. I remember him saying that he wanted me to push me to my limits to see how much pain I could, and then he would know if I could do it, if I could be with him. And I don't even remember that to this moment. And I wanted to be with him so bad. I wanted to prove that I could take it. And so I did. And this is Saturday. So Saturday, Friday. I don't even remember how long I was out there. Crap. Let's just call this day one. I think it was Saturday. We were picking up his brother. We were going to a strip club to celebrate one of his roommates' birthdays. I can't remember how old she was turning. Him and I had previously had a conversation about strip clubs because I don't get it. And he lied about going to one. And I was like, I don't care if, I mean, like, I just don't get it. I don't understand. We all have a finite amount of money. We're not rich and we're spending it on here. Like, I just don't understand. It's not a judgment thing. It was just like, I just don't get it. Or an insecure thing. I really, truly don't get it. But we were going to a strip club and I've been to strip clubs before. I went with my best friend all the time. And so I knew that we were there to celebrate his friend's birthday. And I knew almost instantly that like our connection that we were supposed to be building was taking a little bit of a backseat to that because he got thrown in this situation and he didn't know what to do. And so I was trying to be understanding. So I pick up his brother and I remember like taking one of his fingers into my mouth or whatever. And he got so mad. It was like, don't do that in front of my brother. And I'm like, your brother's a grown ass, but whatever. Like it was almost instant. He was a person that I'd known to be really calm and considerate with me turned really snappy. And I never met that person. And so I remember that we were supposed to be meeting them up at like this place to go eat, but the place turned into 21 and up at a certain time. So we went to go eat somewhere else. And after that, you know, I remember having a conversation and I cut him off and he got really upset. Don't cut me off. I'm sorry, I'm just processing this at the real time of how abusive this really was. He snapped on me about cutting him off and I felt so like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. I didn't know it would make you that mad. I have ADHD. And he was just like, when you cut me off, I forget everything that I'm going to say. And like, I knew that about him. And I warned him like, hey, I'm never trying to do this on purpose. It just happens. And so I just pushed it under the rug and I'm like, I just want this to be good. I just want this to be good. I just want this to be good. So we go to the strip club and we all kind of sit down. I meet, more of the roommates. The roommates' birthday it was. And we're all at the bar and one of his roommates, his girlfriend worked at the bar at the strip club, or I can't remember. And I remember sitting next to him and his brother. And I remember placing my hand on his lap and then further down. And at first he was okay with it, but then I guess one of his roommates looked down and saw, and then he got upset. So you can't do this in front of my roommates. And I was confused because we had already had conversations about this and he was totally okay with all of it. He knew who I was and he was totally okay with it. And now he was just acting so distant. And so he went to go hang out with the roommates, but right before his roommate, who it was her birthday, she had two friends with her, and one of the friends was kind of like mean mugging me a little bit from across the bar, and I was confused, but I knew what that look was, and that look was a woman being pissed off that another woman was there, and I instantly clocked it. And although I ignored a lot of my intuition, my intuition about that was strong from my previous relationships. And so I clocked that immediately, but I didn't say anything because we're there for his friend's birthday. And like, I'm never going to make a scene. I'm not that person anymore. And so he goes off hanging with them. And I'm kind of stuck with no one to talk to for hours at a strip club. And instead, he kind of left his brother there too. And instead, I just focused on like helping his brother have a good time, his first time in a strip club. And he had to wear this special shirt because he was 18 and under and couldn't drink or whatever. And, we were getting him lap dances and I was trying to make my time there enjoyable, even though I wasn't really spending it with him. And he had been gone for a while and he went from like sitting down and enjoying the strippers to going playing pool with his friends, and all of them had like dispersed. And he was having a conversation with this guy, and I really thought I had given him enough time. Like, I didn't want to interrupt his time. I wanted him to enjoy his time. And so eventually I went over and I was like, hey, um, I want some attention now. And I was really chill about it. I didn't say it out loud. I whispered it in his ear. And he was like, okay, give me a second. I'm talking to this guy. And I was like, all right. And then I talked to the guy for a second and I walked away. And then he came back and he immediately chastised me for interrupting him and was like, you interrupted me when I was talking to somebody. And this is why I didn't want to bring you to the strip club in the first place, because I knew you were going to be acting weird. And I was like, who's the fuck is acting weird? I'm not the one acting weird. I'm sitting here enjoying the strippers as everybody else. I'm here engaging with your brother. And it's like, and then you did that thing. And he was just so, I'm not going to get into it because I can't remember all of it, but he was really, really mad. And I felt scolded and confused and really upset because it was really hurtful, some of the things that he was saying to me. And I just didn't understand because I was genuinely confused. And so I remember standing there and he was talking to his friends like everything was okay. Like he was so unbothered while I was so upset and he just didn't care. He knew that I was upset and he just didn't care. And so I went in the bathroom and I cried. Day one, I went in the bathroom and I cried. I wish I could tell you it gets better, but it gets worse. I come out and then he's mad at me again because he feels like I'm making a scene. And I'm making it all about me. And I'm drawing attention to myself and everybody can tell that I'm unhappy. And I looked at him and I said, well, maybe you shouldn't have told me this in front of everybody. Is it really me that's making a scene, or was it you who did all this in front of everybody when you could have just waited to talk to me alone? Eventually I just go outside and it's starting to get chilly and I'm cold and he doesn't offer me his jacket or anything, but his friend offers me a jacket a flannel that he had in his car. And so we go out to eat after that. And then we go back and he and I engage and play again and again and again and again. It gets worse and worse. It hurts more. I keep pushing him off, asking him to stop over and over again. And eventually we fall asleep and it happens again. And we fall back asleep and it happens again. And we sleep most of the day away because he just hasn't slept. And I had nothing else to do. I had no car. I had no way of getting around. So I was stuck. I was trapped. And again, a lot of these things are just coming to me now. I was trapped. If I went downstairs, what would I do? Would I talk to his roommates? That'd be awkward and weird. I didn't know any of them. And I wanted to go out and explore the area, but I couldn't without him. And he spent the day sleeping. And I remember him waking up and he had to go do something for work. And then he just like verbally abused me and talked down to me about how basically he was ashamed of me, that I had no ambition and that I was lazy and I didn't want to work because I was battling with my anxiety and my depression and I didn't want to fight it anymore. And he said that if I really wanted to work and I really wanted money, then I would stop playing these games about my books and everything else and try to follow my dreams and I would just suck it up and get a job. And I was lazy because I didn't want that. And he's not used to dating people who are hardworking. And we had a big fight about it. And I was like, I am one of the most hardworking people that you will ever met. But even those people need a break. Like, it doesn't matter. You have to continue. And then he mentioned the girl who was mean mugging me last night. Like, and she's just working all the time. She does 2, 3 jobs to take care of her kids and blah, 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 blah. And she does all this work. And it was so fucked because I had mentioned to something about her before, about her looking at me weird. And then now here he is comparing me to this person. And it's weird that I can say this part without really crying. He says all these things about me, really hurtful things that I can't remember about me and my work ethic and my personality, and basically like I'm not good enough and my dreams aren't good enough and I'm not going to make it in the writing world. And guess what, guys? I still haven't. So part of him was right? Because look at my life now. And then he left. And I remember calling my mom and my best friend and just being so upset about what he said about me, how he made me feel about myself. And I never let someone make me feel like that about myself in a really long time, or I'm sorry, I haven't had it let someone make me feel about myself like that in a really long time. And this was the person who normally would be boosting me up. And day two into this, and I spent time with him, but I didn't really get to spend any time with him. And the roommates, they all did fun stuff all through the day. I think they went to the beach and had fun, and I was stuck in his bedroom, which was like the attic, like a loft kind of place, but at the top of the house, completely isolated from the other floors and everybody else. And now I can see, and I don't think that that was his intent, but now I can see it like a dungeon where you keep the things that you don't want to come out or you don't want people to see or your worst things. And I quickly started to realize that he was ashamed of me. He was ashamed of who I was. This person who gave me so much power to feel it was good to be who I was ashamed of me. And he wanted to hide me. He didn't want anyone to get to see me or get to know me for the most part. He just wanted to keep me hidden away. Um, so he left. And I went back to sleep and I cried myself back to sleep. He came back. He was like, hurry up and get ready because we're going out to eat for her birthday because it was her actual birthday that day. We go out to a Mexican place and his brother's there too. And his brother had a great time hanging out with the roommates. And I remember one of his roommates' girlfriends, the one that worked at the as a bartender at the strip club, her and I kind of connected a little bit because we were like a little bit of the people who were left out of it. And one of his big love languages was physical touch. And so I remember always making an effort to touch him or put my hand on his lap because I knew that that was important to him. Physical touch isn't that important to me to feel loved. It's something that I do, but it's not, I don't need it to feel loved. It's ranked either the lowest or the second to lowest on my list. I think only thing lower than that is gift giving. If I'm correct, it's been a while since I've done it. I remember being there and already feeling so upset and so confused, and I called my best friend and I had kind of told her everything that was going on, and she was upset that there weren't any safe words and it wasn't safe play, and I had to push him off me. And you know what she called us, she's like, I'm so sorry that this is your first experience. And I'm like, it's okay. It's fine. It's, it'll get better. And she was just like so apologetic. She's like, Tiffy, I never wanted this for you. I'm so sorry that this is your first experience in this world. Like, I knew that you could be in this world, but she didn't want that for me. And I just played it off because I didn't want her to worry. And then I remember we go out to dinner and his girl roommate is sitting across from us. They're talking about some girl that she was dating. And the other roommate the friend who was mean mugging me was sitting across from us as well. And I remember he was texting his roommate. And this whole time, the girl is like giving me eyes and they're looking at each other and everything's fucking weird. And I felt like I'm intruding on everybody else. And that's never something I want to do. So I feel like I'm intruding on everybody else. And it gets really weird because he's texting his roommate, the girl roommate from across the room. And then all of a sudden, the girl who was being mugged me picks up the phone and starts texting him back in front of me. Knowing that that's weird, knowing that that's strange, knowing that like there's no respect for me or him. And it really, truly felt like, and it was them flirting in front of me. And we had a rule about that because, he was very like, oh, well, I don't care if you flirt with other guys because I know who you're going home with. And I was like, we had conversations about that. But he's like, well, maybe we're not going to do that like this time. Like this time I wanted to just be us. Like those were his words. Those were his things. Like he sold me on. And here I am sitting across from this girl that he's texting and low key flirting with. And that's when I realized that they had an interaction before. And I don't know if he knew that she was going to be there. I know that he probably felt like he was in an impossible situation. He didn't know what to do. And it irritated the shit out of me. I didn't have the words to say it, but I sat through that dinner pissed. Another interaction with the group, and I'm pissed. Um, and I just felt so different. I remember when we were out, back when we were doing our annual training, and he was talking to the other girl, and he would always be touching on her and kissing on her and having her on the lap and everything like that. And that's what I expected. And that was not what I got. And I felt so fucking ashamed of who I was because I felt so undeserving. I wasn't even deserving of the thing that he gave somebody that he knew for 5 seconds. And we didn't know each other. We had been friends for a year, and we had been engaging for months. And I wasn't deserving of that. But here he was being all flirty with another girl. And so I didn't have the words. And so we got in a car when we were leaving, and I told him that I felt jealous. And I didn't really feel jealous. I felt maybe insecure in our connection, because I thought that we had had something and it was clearly not. And disrespected would probably be the better words, but I'm not really good at pinpointing my feelings at the time. And so I told him, and he was like, I can't stand it when a girl is jealous. You have nothing to be jealous about. And I was like, okay, but I am. And these are the reasons why. And you guys are flirting. I'm not flirting with her. I don't want her. She is a single mom with 2 kids. I don't want to date a single mom. By the way, guys, he had a kid. He had had a wife previously, and he had a kid from that marriage, and he was divorced from them. But he didn't want to date a woman who had kids. And so he's like, she has 2 kids and her life is a mess and blah, 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 blah. And I can't. And if any men are listening to this, the worst thing that you can do when someone says that they feel jealous or they feel insecure about another girl is to tear down that other girl. That does not make any woman feel better at all. And then I remember she was thicker. And although I had grown to be a little slim thick, I was very self-conscious of that because that's what I got compared to my whole life, and told that I was not good enough because I wasn't thick enough because I was too skinny. And then it was like a living embodiment again. And lying cheating ex cheated on me with what they call like a snow bunny, who was a thick white girl. And here was another thick white girl, and I felt threatened. And then he had also, that same day, told me how much he admired her and didn't admire me. And it was just so fucking confusing. And I just wanted to talk about it, and I wanted to address some of the things that were going on. I wanted to address that I didn't want to feel like I was just here to be used sexually, and I wanted to have a connection with him. And I felt like all I was there for was to have sex with him, and the connection that we had wasn't there anymore. And then I waited. He went downstairs, and I waited for him to come, up to his room, which is all the way at the top. And then after a while, I texted him. He didn't respond, and I finally got the brave to go downstairs and look for him. And this is a deeper trigger warning, so just giving you guys the heads up. At this time, I'd had bruises all over my body from sorry, people keep passing and waving to me, and I have to pretend like I'm talking about something fun and not something like heart shattering. I had bruises all over my body, and I love bruises. I want to be clear. But all over my body was black and blue and purple from his constant sexual abuse of biting me to the point where I basically was screaming and crying and spanking until I was screaming and crying and pinching and all these other painful things until he could wear me down and get me to a place where he wanted me to be, to accept this pain that he wanted me to accept at his level. He wanted to be a sadist to me, and he wanted me to accept that about him. And I remember having that conversation with him later. I think on the way to the Mexican dinner on day 2. And he agreed. And that should have been my sign to like get the fuck out. But I still wanted to talk through it. This is the first relationship that I could really have a conversation and talk through things. And we had established this, so I thought that we could talk through it. And finally he came upstairs, and I'm trying to communicate to him about how this is supposed to be our time to connect. And we've been spending it with his friends, but I understand because it's his friend's birthday and he doesn't have a lot of off time because he's been working nonstop, 12 hours a day, like all that kind of jazz. And at a certain point, he just started shoving his hand down my throat to shut me up. And then we pull it away, and then I would try to talk again, and he shove his hand down my throat again. And he did that a couple times. And I'm like, listen to me. I'm trying to tell you my concerns. Like, these are important to me. And he was like, I don't want to listen right now. I'm drunk. I had too much to drink, and now I'm going to be the bad guy because I'm being mean to you, and that's not what I want. And I just want to have a good time, and I just want to all these things. And I'm like, I'm not trying to take that from you. Yes, you are, and you're making everything about this, and we could talk about this later when we're not around all these people, and we're not around my roommates and everything like that. And I'm just like, I'm so stunned. And I remember he stormed off and he went downstairs. And he left me in the isolation again by myself. And my only choices were to stay up there or to go down to a place I didn't know where he knew would make me anxious and try to find him. And so I called my best friend and I told her. And she was like, Tiffy, let me come get you. And I thought about it. I really did. I thought about it so many times, packing my bags. And even before she said that, I thought about packing my bags because why am I tolerating this disrespect? Why am I tolerating this from someone who I thought really cared about me and I thought loved me, and found out later that he did, but he would never admit it. And she's like, let me come get you. Tiffy, please let me come get you. Let me pick you up. And I was like, no, I'm okay. It's okay. And I'm saying it while I'm bawling my eyes out crying. I'm okay. Just, you don't have to come get me. She was like, Tiffy, it's just a 2-hour drive. And I was afraid. And I didn't know I was afraid at the time, but I was afraid because what happened? What happens if I escape my cage? Is he going to get mad because I made a scene? Is he going to cause a scene himself? Am I putting my best friend in danger? And more of like, I don't want this to be my visit. I don't want this to be something that I look forward to and a person that I did all of this for. And so I told her no. And I said, Jessie, I want to see this through. I don't want it to end this way. And reluctantly she said, okay. And then I got myself off the floor. I went downstairs. And they were getting ready to play a drinking game. They're like, hey, you want to play? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So we all pile up in the female roommate's room. And this drinking game had it out for me, him, and the girl that was me mugging me. Because it kept pitting us against each other. Or there was him with her with me against her. It was just weird. And everybody started to notice the tension in the room. And then I started to realize that they had talked a lot more. They had talked a lot more than I thought they did. Because she answered new questions about his past relationships that I hadn't. Which I don't feel entitled to because, like, shit, she probably knew him longer or in a different way than I did. Maybe longer, who knows? So, but it was so weird. Like, this is the same guy who was getting ready to move to a new state just to be with this girl that he just met, which was the girl that I knew. And here he was, wouldn't even sit next to me. He wouldn't even sit next to me. He sat next to his roommate on the bed, and it was him, his roommate, and then the friend on the bed, and then was all the rest of us on the floor. And I kind of just sat by myself next to one of his roommate's girlfriend, the one that worked at the strip club, and next to his brother. We played the drinking game. The tension got worse and worse and worse as more questions came up. And everybody could tell that we were fighting and we're all just trying to put on this thing. And then I remember he took a photo and like the flash went off and it made a sound or whatever. And then the girl instantly goes, oh my gosh, did you take a picture of my feet? And everybody went silent. And everyone looked at me. And I was humiliated. But I did the whole yelling, screaming drama thing before. I wasn't going to do it again. That wasn't going to be me. So I just sat there and didn't say a word. I texted him and like, did you really take a picture of her feet? Like, this is getting crazy. The energy in here is getting crazy. Everybody else can tell. This is so weird. You guys keep flirting with each other. He's like, I'm not flirting with her. And I took a picture of my pants because it had all this lint on it. And I remember eventually like getting up and going to the bathroom to just like breathe because it was such a terrible environment. And then eventually I came back and we continued playing the game, and then they decided we're gonna play a different game in another room, and the girl decided that she was gonna take a shower and go to bed, and you could feel the energy shift. And even his energy as he reacted to me, responded to me shift when she was gone. And we played some like card games or whatever. I can't remember what it was. And then that was fun. And then everybody dispersed to go up to bed. And I think I had to go to the bathroom or something. So he went up first. This is a deeper trigger warning. And then when I got upstairs, he was so angry and drunk that he just attacked me, slammed me to the floor, got on top of me. And I don't remember all the rest. I remember pain. I remember fear. I remember thinking that, oh, I tried my whole life not to be like my mom and to break that generational curse. I didn't. I failed. And I remember while I was going to me begging him to stop. Hey, please stop. Please get off of me. Please. And pushing at him and I thinking like, okay, this is how it happens. And I was, they talk about the psychology of things. And you wonder how a person who's a fighter can just stop. But I realized that there was not a single thing that I could do to save myself. And in that moment, I just had to accept whatever was happening. And luckily, he came to his senses before things got, I want to say too bad because they were already really bad. And he got up and I just cried. And he just went to the bed, which is just a blow up bed, by the way. By the way, this man is mocking me and I own my own house with a bed and dogs and everything. And he's sleeping on a blow up bed. He didn't even, no headboard, guys. Sorry, I can't, it's not funny. I can't, I can't do this without humor. Um, and cried everything I fought my whole life not to become and not to happen to me. I became and it happened. And I want to be clear, guys, he did not rape me. And he did almost everything else. So I stayed and I cried. And then I got up and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to go. It was too late to call my best friend. I thought about packing my bags, but I had to catch my flight. And my flight was in an entirely different state because I was that isolated that I wasn't even in the same state my return flight was. It was like a 5-hour drive, 4-hour drive, something like that. And like, what would I do? Would I go to the airport to pack up all my bags really quiet while he was sleeping? And then in the middle of the night, try to get a cab, call an Uber, and wait outside for it. Then I have to sneak out the house without anybody hearing me and then be outside by myself, which isn't safe, and then get a cab and then get to an airport and then have to pay for another ticket, which I didn't have the money for. I could stay there and wake up my best friend, but then I would have to stay there and wait. And what would happen when my best friend got there? I would have to sneak out of the house still, pack up all my stuff. And what if I woke him and he caught my best friend? And what would happen? I never wanted to be a problem for anyone. And I was trained not to be a problem for anyone. And there was no fucking way that if something bad happened, I was going to bring her into it. There's no way. I would never do that to her. I didn't know what could happen. So instead, I crawled into bed and he cuddled me and I cried. I tried to talk to him and he said, "This is not the time to talk." So I didn't. Went to sleep. And then he had sex with me again and we went back to sleep. And we woke up and it was daytime. I laid down the law because I was not about to keep allowing this to happen. I may have been stuck in that circumstance, but that had reached a point. And so I told him, I was in a cheating relationship. I'm not doing that again. So you can make a decision that either you engage with her and you don't engage with me, but I'm not going to put myself through that. I'm not going to put myself in that position again. And we hadn't really talked about what happened much. But I remember telling him that I loved him, and I don't remember why I did that. I think it was just simply because I planned on it the whole time. I had felt it for a while and I wanted to tell him. I planned on it for a while and I wanted to tell him. But I wanted to tell him in person And I remember when I told him after I laid down all these boundaries and rules and things like, we're not doing this again. Um, he was shocked. He's like, even after all of this? And I was like, yeah, even after all of this. So everything I did to you, I was like, yeah. And he was happy. And then he said, I want you to know that what I'm about to do has nothing to do with you. It is nothing about your pleasure, and it's all about me. And we had sex again. I don't know where my mind state was at that time. I can't give you guys a clear depiction of it. But yeah, we get up and we know when I have to be at the airport, but we're supposed to be go look at the ship. So we go on the ship and the girl is there. And it seemed like he heard what I said. He was finally acting interested in me and engaging with me and giving me attention because my love language was quality time. It's my top love language. And it finally wasn't awkward. And I felt like I suffered through something, but I won an award. Like I made it through all this bad shit, but look at how he's treating me now. And I hate when people like wax poetic on things that happened to them because it's not how you think in the moment, right? But we're not aware of how our brain processes in the moment. So I get it now. I still don't like it, but I get it now. And I remember just feeling finally wanted and finally getting that feeling back that I had with him from before. And then we went out to eat for sushi and he didn't pay because guess what? We had sex that morning. He wasn't getting sex when I left. So he didn't pay. And got in the car and somehow I felt safe. I finally, after suffering for those first 2 days and a little bit before, finally that attention, that love finally earned it. Came at a hell of a price. And my ability to compartmentalize is strong. I fell asleep with his hand on my lap because I told him when we first got there that his hand had to stay there. And it did the whole time. Whether we were annoyed at each other or not, it stayed there. And I got to the airport and I said goodbye and I said, thank you for making this day great. And I got on the airport and I was happy, but I knew I wasn't. And I texted him because I wanted him to know that that day was great and that I was appreciative. Like he worked really hard to make that day great. And he was doing the bare minimum, just giving me fucking attention. And then I remember I got home and I took that night and the day to really think. And I didn't really talk to him much. And then the next day I had processed because it takes me a while to process. And it's like, hey, can you call me when you get a chance? And I remember he was really upset about that because of work and everything. And I was like, it's important. And I told him how I felt. And not everything, but I told him what wasn't okay. Told him that what happened wasn't okay. And that next time we were going to have to engage in proper play and that we needed rules and everything. And I explained everything, how I felt about him, how I felt about the girl, and all of it. And like I said, we had a relationship where we could talk about all of the things and we could talk through them. And I just wanted him to say, okay, and I'm sorry, and I won't do it again. So I could write it off. And God, do I sound like every single woman that's ever been abused? I was convinced. I remember I was convinced. I called my best friend and told her that if this could be okay, then all of that didn't happen to me. But instead, he told me that he needed some space. And I asked him for how long, and he said he didn't know. And if you remember in the first part, I told you guys that space is like physical punishment to me. It hurts physically. I don't process it well because I've had people in the past use space manipulatively. And then he didn't talk to me for a week. I went through it and I didn't know how to process and I pushed everything on social media. And then he got mad because I pushed everything on social media and I wasn't handling it the right way. But how the fuck do you handle? This person just did the worst things to you emotionally and physically and sexually and mentally abused you. And then when you tell him how you felt, not that you were going to leave him, nothing like that, you told him how you felt. and he walks away. How do you deal with that? Everybody's mad at Taylor Frankie Paul because she didn't handle the situation the right way they felt. And this is why I related her to so much, because there are going to be people who hear my story and poke holes at it and say, it was her fault. She stayed. She let him do it. And it's so much more complex than that. But I need you guys to know that more than anything, I blame myself. More than anything, I am mad at myself. And more than anything, I can't understand how I allowed it to happen. Maybe if I was smarter, maybe if I was stronger, maybe if I wasn't so needy, maybe if I wasn't all the worst things that he said about me and everyone has said about me, maybe then I wouldn't have had that happen to me. Maybe someone would have never hurt me. Maybe I wouldn't have allowed it. Maybe I wouldn't have stayed. I hate that I stayed. I hate that I stayed more than anything in this world. I hate it. I grew up in an abusive household. I knew what I'm supposed to do. I was abused. This whole time I've been fighting to find a word to explain what happened to me. And I settled on sexual abuse. Assault didn't feel right. I don't know why, but it didn't. But sexual abuse did. That's the best way that I can describe what happened to me. I'm gonna go home and my dad's gonna be like, why do you have tear marks under your eyes again? After that phone call, he never called me again. He never talked to me on the phone again. And I went crazy. You know, the part where Taylor blew up Dakota's phone? I did that. Begging for him to even engage and play with me, submitting myself to him. Because this thing that I thought was so beautiful in my life and that came right when I needed it had hurt me. And I just wanted everything to go back. And it's weird to think that although things didn't move quickly, they moved quickly. It just didn't feel like that because most of the time we were friends. But once I caught feelings. I need this. And when he finally did talk to me at first, he told me that he didn't know what he wanted. He was afraid that he was going to lose me. And he felt like we should just go back to being friends. And I said, okay, we can do that. But you have to know that if we go down that route, we will never, ever again be anything but that. And that wasn't the right answer for him. And then he said he didn't know what to do. And then he just stopped texting. And then he started to use the very thing that other people use to manipulate me and hurt me, silence and selective silence, as a way to hurt me. In the passing months, he had called me many things, and I tried to convince him to stay with me, which is one of the dumbest things I've ever done in my life. But I could not process that. It was out of my realm of capabilities to process it. And I grew really depressed. And then in that week, I had to go to work and I was crying every day. And then I got in trouble at work, which is how I started wearing concealer, because I started concealing my feelings. And I used the concealer to do it. And the messages were few and far between. And I would usually have to get him pissed off for him to respond to me. And I would often ask, why was he doing this? And can we just get back together? And my therapist was worried. I didn't tell her what happened. I didn't want her to tell me the truth, because I knew what she would say. I knew she would say it was sexual abuse or sexual assault. And I was just not ready. The only person that knew was my best friend. And she struggles with depression herself, but she also struggles with other people being depressed. And so she could not handle my depression. And in fact, at that time, had told me that she can't tolerate prolonged depression longer than a week. And that my depression was ruining her wedding, because she was having a 10-year anniversary ceremony, because she never got to have a real wedding. And although I was doing everything, wasn't talking about my situation at all, I was talking to her. And she, within like a week or two, was like, you just need to get onto another guy when you're in Vegas. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't even want to be with anybody else anymore. She didn't understand that either. She knew, but she just couldn't process it, and I get it now, and I never held it against her then. Yeah, it was just I went from having this person in my life who I thought was everything and was the final answer, and maybe not the final answer, but, like, the answer to all these stupid things that people said about me, about how my standards weren't good enough and I needed to lower them because nobody was gonna want me, and all those things that people don't say to you because they mean to be mean to you, but they say to you because they really wanna help you, but it ends up being the absolute wrong thing to say. I thought I finally had proven them all wrong, and I found myself in an abusive relationship. And what would normally be a small escalation and then a break and all that, all built up into one weekend. And it was so quick and so fast that I couldn't even process what was going on until it was done. And I couldn't process it for months after, for almost a year after, coming up on close to 2 years, be 2 years Labor Day. And a part of me didn't want to tell my story because I already know what you're all gonna say. I already know what you're all gonna think. And I'm just personally not in the mood to have a whole bunch of people judge me because I've already been judging myself. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. I was having body aches trying to process this, and I didn't even plan on recording this today at all. Thought I'd give myself another week, but I was sitting and I was reading, and I have so much work to do that I'm now not gonna get done because it's 9 o'clock and I'm tired. And I've spent 5 hours, about 5 hours podcasting today, maybe a little more. No, crap, about 6.5 hours podcasting today. That's a lot. The end of the story is that sometimes he would message me and sometimes we'd be friends. He ended up getting another girlfriend at the time, which he threw in my face in one of our fights about how he couldn't be with someone who was jealous. He said really mean things to me in this time, really abusive, hurtful things to me. But he had a new girlfriend who was just way better than me. And then my fibroid stuff came up. And then one day he reached me out to me and out of the blue on my business Instagram, and he wanted to tell me that he was in this new relationship and he was so happy and he was sorry. He finally wanted to say sorry, not for any of this. He's never once acknowledged anything that happened that weekend. And when I asked him to talk about it and to give me an explanation, he said that he couldn't do it without losing himself. I have to experience it every single day. But I get it. I really do. Because I don't think he was a monster. I think he was someone that was so lost and so hurt. And I met the worst part of him. I don't think he'll do it to anybody else. And I know that you guys have your statistics or whatever, but I don't. And a couple months ago, I let him know that I forgave him. Hurt people hurt people. And I don't, he has a life now. He ended up breaking up with the girl and we got friends again for a second. And I didn't want to be with him anymore. But I think there's a part of me that still wasn't done and still wanted to be friends and wanted to make what happened to me right. And I didn't know how to do that. And I still don't know how to do that. But then he got her pregnant. And at this point, they have a baby. And that's not my life anymore. My life continued to blow up and to fall into pieces even before my best friend committed suicide. I'd given everything to everybody, and then they all left. My best friend and I stopped talking to each other right before my surgery in April. He knew about my surgery. I probably stopped talking to him a little after that, even though he would send me emails every now and again. My best friend killed herself July 6th. So that's my story. After that, the suicidal thoughts that I had, well, to be clear, even though I didn't know it, my body knew that something was wrong and my mind did. And it was a really scary time for everybody. And I had to implement this like strategy to basically treat myself as if I was in a clinic because I couldn't afford to go to one. So I made my home into like an in-house treatment clinic. Very strict. But my best friend was worried. They didn't want me to get checked in then. And we talked about how I couldn't do that financially. But I was struggling through it a lot. And I had a therapist who tried to push me, and I got another therapist, and none of it worked. And then my therapist left the country. They made my best, and then I found that I had to have surgery. I had fibroids the size of grapefruits and oranges, and me and my best friend fought, and then I had my surgery, and then I couldn't work for 6 weeks, and I finally got back to work, and then she died, and I checked myself into a mental um, institution, and then I got out, and I was put on medication, and I couldn't work for 2 weeks, and then I decided to give up my house, and I lost one of my dogs. I lost all my belongings, not all of them, but I didn't even have my car at that time because it got into an accident while I was coming from celebrating my best friend's life. And now I'm here. I have a podcast, and I'm working on books. And I gave up some of my stores, but I still have the indie author bookstore. But I live with my parents now separately. They can barely pay my bills. I'm in therapy. I'm on heavy dosage of medication. I had to take magnesium 2 days ago, not to go to bed, but just to get my body to stop aching. I'm here, and this is my life now, and I don't know what's gonna happen next. Some days it feels like I'll never get away from the pain of everything. Some days it feels like all of this was happening to me for a reason. Today, it just feels like another day where I feel broken and used. Another day where I'm reminded that when someone could have chosen to love me, they chose to hurt me. And that a person that I trusted more than almost anybody betrayed me in a way I never thought anyone would. And I never thought I would allow anyone to. And that's it. I want to give you guys a beautiful ending. And maybe one day I will be able to. I don't want to be in relationships anymore. I don't want to be a sexual being anymore. I don't want to be looked at. I don't want to be talked to in that way. I just want peace and safety and security. The way that I look at my body is different. The way that I look at my face is different. The first time I lost the weight from the surgery, some of the weight from the surgery, I had like PTSD because my body looked more like my body when it happened. This is the first time I dyed my hair lighter since it happened. And my hair is a mess right now because of the heat and it's so dry. And I kind of hate it. And I cut it. And I don't know how I feel about it yet. And I'm still going through it every single day. But I don't want to give up anymore. And I guess I finally had the strength to tell all of you what happened. So thank you for listening. I'll see you guys next time. Gabby Gabs Podcast.